We don't walk away from our allies. We stand with them. That's what it means to be the indispensable nation. That's what it means to be the world's superpower and the world's leading democracy.
It's Ken Harbaugh with Against All Enemies on the MeidasTouch Network. President Biden just signed an historic piece of legislation reaffirming America's commitment to democracy around the world. This nation remains, whether its citizens accept the reality or not, the indispensable nation. The aid package for Ukraine and our democratic allies is a reminder that democracy doesn't maintain itself, especially when its enemies seek to tear it down. Tyrants like Vladimir Putin are terrified by the idea of people choosing their own leaders. They are willing to wage war to keep those sparks of democracy, like we see in Ukraine, from spreading. The good news is that enough Americans still believe democracy is worth defending that this aid bill passed, and we have a president in Joe Biden who understands the stakes. The bad news is that democracy is under threat around the world. While the U.S. is still a beacon for freedom-loving people everywhere, that is no longer the guarantee it used to be. We may be the indispensable nation, but we are deeply flawed as a democracy. Because of the dysfunction in our Congress, or more specifically, the dysfunction within the party that controls Congress, it took 6 months for this aid package to pass. Countless Ukrainians lost their lives during that interval, and American credibility around the world was badly damaged. Democracy isn't just some catchword. It is the best form of government that humanity has ever attempted, but it is hard. It requires the engagement of citizens. It's not enough that our leaders lead, as President Biden has on the matter of helping our allies around the world. Democracy requires that the people understand their power and use it. I asked someone I respect immensely for help with this episode of Against All Enemies. Mike Smith is a board member at Veterans for Responsible Leadership, one of the leading democracy-defending organizations in the country today. Mike is also a former Navy fighter pilot with multiple combat tours. He asked Julie Kane to join him for a conversation about the importance of democratic norms and institutions and how democratic values are under threat. I think you'll agree that Mike raises the bar here. Over to Mike Smith and Julie Kane.
Welcome back to the Against All Enemies podcast. My name is Mike Smith. I'm a board member with Veterans for Responsible Leadership, or VFRL. I'm really lucky to be joined today by Julie Kane, who is the CEO and founder of Democracy Investments. Also, I'm really excited about the fact that Julie and I share a common history. I was a naval aviator, and so was Julie. So Julie, welcome, and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Maybe you can help me understand some of the infrastructure of democracy. What are some of the softer things that might fit into what makes a democracy run that everybody needs to be paying attention to?
Right. Well, functioning of government is what the U.S. is struggling with at the moment. Interestingly, the U.S. democracy score, the ranking stayed the same, but we went down in functioning of government and we went up in political participation because more people voted. Some of the softer things I think would include other factors in the Economist Democracy Index, such as number of women in government, as literacy rates, military rule. Is it corrupt or is it independent? Respect for human rights. And things around campaigning. There are all kinds. We could go on and on. The full list of what The Economist uses is on our website if people want to take a look.
We have a couple of pillars at VFRL when we talk about the public discourse and the strength of institutions as being things that we care deeply about, that sometimes aren't. Some institutions are more just an accepted practice that surrounds an actual official institution, and that participating in these accepted norms are an important part, we think, in how the democracy functions. That it becomes a little bit more too kind of bare knuckle if you're only thinking about pure power, about what's written into law rather than what's decent and about what's actually the intent of the law to itself. How does that resonate with you?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important work that you're doing. I am very worried about what's going on in social media and the information warfare. The TikTok I find very disturbing, and the fact that our public discourse has become so polarized we can't even see straight. I find it very concerning.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstallenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Midas Mighty. Let's use our power well. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. The key to metabolic health is something called metabolic flexibility, and that's where Lumen really shines. It refers to your body's ability to efficiently switch between using different fuel sources like carbs and fats. There are preferred times to use each, and how well you can switch places you on the metabolic flexibility spectrum. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. After getting to know you through your breath, Lumen gives you a metabolic flex score that you can track and improve upon. So, if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me and use BOATS to get $100 off your Lumen. That's lumen.me and use BOATS at checkout for $100 off. Thanks, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
What are your thoughts about the defense of Ukraine and then kind of what that says about the larger conflict between, again, authoritarianism and democracy?
Well, the whole world is watching, as we know, and learning from this drone warfare, et cetera. And I think China is watching and learning from it for their planned future invasion of Taiwan. We've got, if we don't protect Ukraine, what does that say about global democracy? It's tragic, absolutely tragic. Recently, our chief economist, Rick Rukowski, was invited by the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine to a planning meeting in Zurich to discuss how to prop up Ukraine after the war. And in their brainstorming about the war, the conclusion was whichever country, Ukraine or Russia, whichever one modernizes more quickly and gets away from the Soviet era way of doing research and development, they will win the war. And it's challenging for both countries, but hopefully with ally assistance, Ukraine can get a head start on that.
I love that. I think it speaks to kind of the historical significance of the United States, as the connection of, again, democracy and economic success. In Europe, we did it before with the Marshall Plan. There's the same idea here, potentially coming in Ukraine post-war, about how resources can help to prop up and foster democracy, and that can bring on, real blooming of economic success. I wonder if you could talk maybe a little bit about the importance of leadership, of not necessarily just the United States, even though we have that historical role, but other countries being that the supporting democracy and how that relates to countries that are sliding towards authoritarianism versus or vice versa, because we know that China is the kind of the counterweight here, that so is Russia, that they have authoritarian tendencies and they're pushing towards authoritarian because it benefits them from security. What examples pop to mind for you?
Mm-hmm. When you look at the largest populations, the top 20 countries only have 3 full democracies: the US, Japan, and Germany. And when you look at the World Bank projections for what's the rankings in 2050, Germany falls off and you're only left with the US and Japan. And the size of the population, so those other 18 countries are not democracy. So the trends are not on our side. So which brings us back to the beginning of the conversation. What can we as individuals do to help democracies grow and help reverse these trends?
I think I'll leave it there. I'm thankful to again be joined by Julie Kane, the CEO and founder of Democracy Investments. And then, Julie's just, she's been a career public servant. She's on the board for Swords to Plowshares. She also, as we talked about before, was a naval aviator. So I'm grateful for all the work that you do, Julie, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at meidastouch.com/newsletter.